the collapse of the Soviet Union. Often I'm asked, well, did you see this coming? Could you see this coming? I mean, this was perhaps, I think it's the most significant historic event in my lifetime. I think. It's probably a unique development almost in history, because I cannot think of an example in history when an empire willingly dissolved itself. And that is, in effect, what happened in the Soviet Union, when it sort of peacefully, willingly gave up the empire. I did not see it coming. I don't think anyone saw it coming. And people ask, well, how is this possible? We gave millions to the CIA, to analysts. This was the most watched phenomenon in the world. Well, the answer is you could not see it coming. You could not see it coming because, by definition, if you could see it coming, people would have stopped it. People would have averted it. It was something that came very much from the top. It came from Gorbachev. And nobody could predict what Gorbachev would do. The real irony is that nobody saw it coming, not even Gorbachev, because he did not think that the Soviet Union would come apart. So if Gorbachev himself did not anticipate what his actions would bring, how could a poor analyst in the CIA have surmounted that is what would happen? I think it's always very unfair that people criticize that we could not see this coming. But nonetheless, it was an incredible development that, I would never have predicted. And I certainly would never have predicted that it would happen as peacefully as it did. We all know there were conflicts. I worked on them subsequently in Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Moldova. There were regional wars. But I also worked at the time, or later, I worked on Yugoslavia. And I sometimes think, compare the dissolution of Yugoslavia with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And it is counterintuitive. Yugoslavia was the poster child of the West for much of the post-war period. The Soviet Union was the evil empire. And yet the Soviet Union dissolved relatively bloodlessly, while Yugoslavia had this tragic, incredible civil war. And you often ask, well, why is this? Why did this happen? And I can tell you my answer, it's the quality of political leadership. And when people sometimes ask me, what have you learned in your 32 years in the Foreign Service? I say it is the importance of the quality of leadership on the fate and the destiny of nations. And I think you see it in a case like this, where I think Gorbachev, who is one of the truly great figures of our time, and Yeltsin to some degree, allowed this thing to happen peacefully, whereas Yugoslavia had the tragic misfortune to have some leaders who led it down a terrible, irresponsible path. And the country suffered so dramatically for it. We all wish that they had had different leaders. And it happened that way. So the lesson I have learned is the importance of the quality of leadership, really, in foreign affairs. It's incredible.